Okay, and we are live. There we go. So welcome, Soph. Thanks so much for saying yes to have this conversation today.
Oh,
And
thanks, Matt. Thanks so much for the invite.
you're
Thank you.
super welcome. And welcome to those who are potentially watching us live or watching the recording later. So, as usual, I'll start with a little bit of introduction of Soph. Then we'll engage in a conversation about the Mindful AI Manifesto, her involvement, and some of her key thoughts around what's happening in the AI space today. So, Soph, or Sophia Kostava, is a strategic and tactical business operations and finance transformation crusader. She has a deep passion for synergizing strategic intent to quality execution, business architecture. Soph has an extensive hands-on experience in operational management, corporate treasury, banking, governance and risk management, procurement, vendor management, business analysis, solution design, project and change management. She has a vast experience across several industries, including banking, ASX, corporate, private, not-for-profit, startups, associations, government, local and federal, and the arts. So throughout her career, she has been active in supporting businesses through transformational change that is strategically driven and operationally fit for purpose. Soph has a very curious mind and loves delving into details, collaborating for knowledge sharing, identifying the real problems to be solved, co-designing strategy and solutions, driving high quality delivery, and actively supporting change through uplifting capability. Lastly, Soph's passion is all about creating meaningful outcomes that produce lasting and positive change. So, a mouthful. Sophie, your official bio,
Oh,
and I
no,
think
that is a mouthful. Sorry, Matt.
and I, it's okay, and it kind of alludes to many aspects of your experience and your knowledge, and the reason why you are here talking to us today, and the reason why I invited you to to become one of our ambassadors. I think your strategic thinking, your extensive experience in the change transformational space, and that curious mind of yours.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really nice words.
So now I think it would be nice before we get into deeper into our discussion, just have a little bit of a quick fire questions. So let's start with your full name. How do we pronounce your full name? So
Sophia Kostava. So that's Georgian. Yep.
okay, and that leads to in which city were you born? So
Well, I'm first born Australian. So I was born in Sydney, Hornsby, and I've got the heritage of French, Georgian, and Ukrainian. So real multicultural, really. First born Aussie.
wow, interesting times now. And that led us to our favorite city. So, what would you say that is your favorite city if you had to pick one?
I would say Tbilisi would be my favorite city in Georgia. So yeah, I've been there. I love that city. I feel most at home there. Obviously, Melbourne is also a great city.
Cool.
Can't deny that.
Absolutely. I think it's been a number of times in it under the top 50 or top 10 most livable cities in the world. So, favorite drink?
My herbal Ayurveda relax tea is one that I normally go for during the day when at work. And I guess my guilty pleasure is an espresso martini.
Fair enough. Favorite meal or favorite dessert?
Oh, creme brulee, I think.
Creme brulee. Oh, it's one of my favorites as well. What do you do, so to keep yourself mentally, physically fit? What's your favorite?
I think, on the mental side, I'm really follow the Ayurveda style of living, which is being very conscious about what you consume in your mind, in your food, and everything else. So, for my mental well-being, I consume a lot of arts. I would say, and mostly if I'm watching anything, binging or anything, watching anything, it's usually about history or really finding out more about the consciousness and this thing about the natural consciousness of the universe as well. So I'm really inquisitive about, what is happening with psychedelics, with, things that are already in nature that have been used for years and years. And I try to apply a lot of that in my own life. So I'm very much follow Ayurveda as much as possible. And I think, on the physical side, it's really, I walk everywhere and have public transport. I don't have a car, so I'm always running to theatre or something like that.
Well,
I incorporate it in what I do, I guess, my exercise. It's not something that I physically go out and, I'm going to do exercise now. It's all part of my, embedded in my life, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You touched on a very interesting topic, quite controversial, I would say, psychedelics, isn't it? I came across the other day, a friend of mine recommended this podcast from a neuroscientist, Uber. It's pretty popular, and there was a whole episode about psychedelics. So I think the research is being quite extensive in that space, but that's for another podcast. So if you are not working in the change management, transformational, strategic space, what would you be doing? I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would be working in the arts, and probably more on art therapy and something like that. How you heal through art would probably be something that I'd be working and interested in.
Fantastic, which is one of actually, passion projects, isn't it, that you have anyway on the side?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been really important to me. My mental health I think art has been imperative to having a good well-being personally. Yeah.
And I think this is another reason why, in addition to your background on change management and strategy, so one reason why I thought that you would be a really great addition to the team of investors for the Mindful AI Manifesto. It's your perspective, because a multidisciplinary team is very important looking at this space of AI. And final question. So a fun fact or something that we cannot find if you look you up on LinkedIn. What's one thing that you feel comfortable to share?
I think it would be that I do a lot of vision boarding for what I want to achieve in my life. And so I do vision board and I achieve it. And then I do another vision board. So I've got tons of vision boards that I have done in my life, and I retire them once they're kind of achieved. But I think going back to mental health, it's probably something that I do is a lot of visualization. And so vision boarding and decoupaging is one of my favorite things to do one of my hobbies.
Pretty cool. And Atomic Habits, I think James Clear totally support that, the visualize, creating your habits and so on. Thanks, Soph. So now let's switch gears. And the first question that I have, it's in relation to the challenges, AI-related challenge that we identified in our website. And as I mentioned to you, I haven't really actually used the slides before. Let me give it a go. Let's see if it will work today, because that might be good to have that as a bit of background support for you. So so those are the challenges that we have identified. So out of those challenges, which one that comes to mind that you resonate the most with, if any?
Yeah, I'm just quickly look at my second. Yeah, it's the second point that probably resonates with me the most, and that's the ethics behind it and how it can be regulated, either self-regulated or through government. And, the frameworks or the mechanisms that we can have that are across the board. So I think it's really the ethics of it is really important to me, and really from a point of view of, long-term basically on humanity and how that might change humanity and in how we operate as humans. So I think the ethics of it is really important. And yeah, I guess that's the one that resonates the most.
Thank you. And in terms of our initiatives, and from memory, I think I do have a slide for that. Out of our initiatives, is there one in particular, maybe a couple in particular that you think are specifically more important?
I think, producing a manifesto is really important. I think you can tell from what happened in the Agile Manifesto or the House of Beautiful Business Manifesto. I think they're really important ways of getting concepts are out there and really talking about the essence of it. So I think the part of creating a manifesto is really important. I think, like you said before, Nat, in terms of multidisciplinary, it's not something, I don't think the manifesto is something that can be purely written by those who actually do the AI or produce the AI. It has to have a broad perspective and a range of perspectives that that's just not the people that are actually in charge of producing that AI. So I think, they're the framework and the manifesto, I think, is a really important one, and how that gets delivered, and I guess, how that gets kind of, I guess, expanded, embraced, and becomes active is really important part of, I guess, obviously the AI manifesto, and having a mindful one. So I think, all the initiatives are important. I think education is really important, but it has to be, not just educating those that are doing the AI, but educating ourselves and people actually knowing when they're using AI, what that actually means to maybe them and their long-term, I guess, thought processes and critical thinking. Will it change the way critical thinking is actually used? And are we, I think there's an element of AI thinking that AI has the answers or AI is perfect, which we know is not. And there's obviously quite a few things, that need to be ironed out. But, I think the idea that AI can do the critical thinking is a real challenge. And the initiative of having a manifesto can help with that. I think the critical thinking part is really important, because will we, I guess my question to us in the humanity is, will we lose that critical thinking? Will we rely on AI to do the critical thinking for us? And what dangers does that present to us? So I'm probably actually going back onto the challenges, Nat, sorry, going around. But yeah, I think they're interconnected, obviously. I think the bias is really important as well, is like ensuring that, there are elements of, the bias is obviously there, but also the bias in terms of what is AI getting used for, and where is it getting used, and is it working towards, I think, taking people out of poverty, or helping humanity? Is there an element of AI, that kind of AI I'm really interested in and focused on? It's the AI that's being created that solves a problem that we probably didn't have. So that's what kind of concerns me, is when AI is being kind of created, solving a problem that we don't really have, and then potentially creating more problems. So I think it's all about, I guess, how do we prioritize AI to solve more of humanity's problems, and not actually have AI creating more problems that we then have to solve as humanity, as a human race.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. We've been talking about, you mentioned ethics, being an important element for you. And there are terms like responsible AI, safe AI. If we think about mindful AI, when you hear those words, what comes to you? What mindful AI means to you?
I think mindful AI for me means really what I've been talking about is the social, the change that will happen in society, and the impact that will have, and being mindful that what problems we might be trying to solve don't really need to be solved, or could be solved in other ways, and really ensuring that mindfully ensuring that there's a way to use AI to actually solve more of those complex problems of humanity, because I feel like if we don't prioritize what we use AI for, or what AI is developing, and those problems that we've got in humanity of hunger and real problems of the whole world, climate change and everything else, if we don't prioritize AI for that, really, can we say that we're actually doing the right thing mindfully with what this technology does, or what is the purpose of it? So I think that's for me in a bit of a nutshell.
Thank you. Agree. And lastly, so in terms of the mindful AI movement, you already spoke about why do you think a manifesto is important. So what would you say, why did you actually know you're pretty busy, lots of things on your plate, pretty active life with your day job and your passion projects? Why did you did you accept to become an ambassador and to get involved with the Mindful AI Manifesto? Why do you think the movement is important?
Well, I think going back to probably my main statement of humanity, like, can AI solve us some of the complex problems of humanity? I think, I'm not an early adapter of some of that technology. You'd know yourself, Nat. I went from having a smartphone to not having a smartphone to being in a Nokia kind of way and being a bit backward almost. But I think my interest in being part of the movement, I guess, is that there's great people that are part of this, that are way more qualified in terms of their knowledge of AI. And I think my kind of a contribution is really more of a layperson's terms, and having that multidisciplinary or a different way to think about it. I can't think of it from that pure tech perspective. I can think about it from a humanitarian perspective. So I think, strategically, how do we do that? I think that's really important. That's why I'm part of the movement. Is, every complex problem, I think, can be solved through having good strategy and knowing how to execute that. And I think, it's just using the techniques of knowing that strategy is really important. And, sometimes the techs are not in that strategic mindset. So I think it's having that, what we said, that having that multidisciplinary type point of view. And, I think the reason why I'm part of it is really that the consciousness, like, are we going to create another consciousness? There is the consciousness, the universal consciousness that's coming up much more prevalent in now, and what we talk about, and how even nature talks to each other. And there is this kind of universal and natural consciousness. So I'm really, I guess, involved in terms of understanding what is the consciousness that AI will create, like, and what will that be, and it's really a difficult thing, because like consciousness, we don't really think about, I mean, not that we don't think about, we all probably think about it to an extent, but I think we're still in the early stages of understanding consciousness from an environmental point of view, from a universal connection of how we're all connected, and the six senses and all of those kind of things. And then I'm like, well, where does AI fit in that kind of overall humanity of consciousness and awareness?
Great question, Soph. And it reminds me, Andy Smith, who is one of our ambassadors, the ambassador for Austria and Germany, he wrote an article a good few years ago on LinkedIn, talking about consciousness, in the context of AI. So very, very pertinent question. And I think that's a proof of how important it is to have a fresh perspective as yours. Cool. So, shall we talk about neurodiversity? So we spoke about, briefly, just while we were waiting in the studio, about neurodiversity. What are your thoughts when you think of neurodiversity and AI? What comes to mind for you?
I mean, there's a couple of things. I think, as someone who self-identifies as dyslexic, though I've never been, kind of officially, diagnosed, but that wasn't the era back in that time. But I just definitely self-identify as dyslexic. And I think, the thing is, AI is there are obviously smart technologies like Grammarly and everything else that does help someone like myself, or, just back in the day it was spell check, and that kind of thing, I think, is really important. So, knowing that there are, and I guess this goes back to the problem that we need to solve. Can we solve real problems, or are we solving problems to create more problems? So I think, there's an element of AI doing good for people that are, say, neurodiverse in say dyslexia or dysphoria or something like that. And then there's the other sense of, having inclusion of people that are neurodiverse, that may have that different perspective in terms of what AI is, and actually having input into it. And I think even just recently, Richard Branson, there was a Made in Dyslexia, is one that I follow quite quite vividly on LinkedIn, and I think they're talking about what does neurodiversity and AI, like how does that work together, and should AI be really leaning on neurodiverse thinking, because then I think here we go into neuronormal. So if AI is being developed and managed by neuronormal, are we missing? And that's what's probably been missing in business for a long time, is having neurodiverse people in business that can think about things in a little bit of a different way than someone that's neuronormal. So I think part of it, I guess, is really ensuring that there's a way of prioritizing AI so that it actually does help people that can then contribute even more to it. So I just feel like there is that the bias is really a concerning thing, and then really how do we get all how does AI actually understand those different neuro ways of thinking? And so is it just going to think in a neuronormal? But when you think about the big entrepreneurs in the world, Elon Musk, he's obviously neurodiverse. You've got Richard Branson. I mean, these are there's numerous people that are neurodiverse that probably are not actually all inclined to Richard Branson walks around with his notepad and his piece of pencil, you know what I mean, and he's an amazing entrepreneur, and he's proven that even with his dyslexia that he has, he can make it in the world. So I think it's about that. It's really about ensuring that bias is really at the forefront of what is being produced in AI, and making sure that it is solving the real problems that need to be solved, and not creating the ones that we don't need to solve.
Wow, well said, Soph. Well said. Maybe I'm conscious of time. We have about 8 minutes left, technically. Of course, we can go a little bit over, but maybe shall we talk about concerns? So it's good that and I'll always like to highlight that everyone that we're having conversations here are champions of artificial intelligence. Of course, we are very aware of all the benefits that AI is bringing to humanity already. But we also have concerns, right? So you mentioned now a couple of concerns. I think one of them you already touched. The other one was around losing knowledge, humanity losing knowledge, and the critical thinking aspect of it. Do you want to elaborate a little bit further on that one?
Yeah. I think for me, while I know that there's Google Maps and everything else, I mean, when I lived in a 3G world, I would call it, pre-COVID, and I had my little Nokia, and I'd walk around and I could text, and I could, I could text, and that was about it, text and ring, and that was my limit of my phone. But I found my life was a lot different in terms of my attention, where I gave my attention, and I probably lived in a more Ayurvedic way in terms of being present. So I feel like when I didn't have my phone, if I had to go somewhere, or if I had to, pop up, check my bank account or whatever it is, I had to do that forward thinking, and it's not on the spot. I had to kind of know, okay, I'm going out, make sure my bank's topped up, make sure I know where I need to go, and look at Google Maps. And I just feel like, when I've lived with quite young people here, and I kind of say, back in the day we had the street directory where you had to look and you had to work things out. You had to actually work out, is the road going this way or going that way? And I feel like just that, yes, it's very, it is very convenient to look at Google Maps and everything else, but does it really challenge us to actually know how to get around if we have to, know how to navigate our own life? So, I think it's kind of a metaphor for me. Like, if I go somewhere, I will, and I don't drive very often, but if I go somewhere, before I rely on Google Maps, I will study where I'm going to go. I don't like, freeways and everything else. So I like, the more slower kind of roads, and I will find my way to get there. And, you can't actually, I know that you can tell Google that, but I will find different ways to go to do, to get around. And I feel like the critical thinking if we lose some really basic critical thinking, everyone, if we all start to be just so reliant on technology for some really basic things like maps and everything. I'm not saying that we all throw out Google Maps, but if we don't want to have a consciousness of where we're going and how we're going to get there and how we like to travel, do we lose the ability to be self-directed, and do we lose the ability to have that critical thinking, like, oh, actually, I don't want to go the fastest route. I want to go the lazy one or whatever. And I just find that when I am in a friend's car or something, like it will tell us to go this way and that way and everywhere, and I'm like, oh, this way, so my friends are like, now, okay, you tell us which way to go, because they actually like my way usually better. But I just think it's sort of it's just important that whilst we it makes our lives faster and easier and everything else, do we really have time to critically evaluate what it's telling us? And is it always going to be right? I don't think so. I think there's elements, I mean, say public transport, if I want to go to Brighton, it will tell me to catch a tram to South Yarra, and and I'll go backwards and forward, and it's like, no, I can catch a tram, I can catch a tram down the road, catch it at Windsor, and I'm there faster. I know that. And it really frustrates me when I see all this intelligence that comes along, and you go, well, hold on. And I was not like, it's just really, can I critically think for myself the way that I want to go, or the way that I want to do it? And, will I have the ability in the future, or will I be just so reliant? I mean, you see young people now, they're so reliant on Google Maps, they don't get any sense of direction, or, we lose our sense of direction. Do we lose ourselves? I don't know.
Very, very, very important point, Soph. And what's coming to mind, I can't remember if it's exactly, I listened to a podcast where Tim Ferriss interviewed Yuval, the author of Sapiens. And he's, just keep the word, what's the word? Anthropologist. So, studied the history of humanity pretty much, Yuval. And I can't remember if it's actually the podcast. I hope it's not. I'm not mixing up. And
Sorry,
I think Yuval, that's okay. Your little one. Welcome him. So he's feel that his part is not wanting to disrupt. So Yuval, I think, spoke about the possibility of just a couple of generations. It just take a couple of generations for us to lose knowledge. And I think it's the Google Maps is a great metaphor, and we are not advocating against Google Maps, of course, but it's a good analogy, it's a good example of a capability, a skill that we can lose easily, and we are losing, just in a couple of generations, thanks to having, technology available. So, and then it leads to the questions of our autonomy and truth. What is the truth? Because, if you're relying, what is the source of truth, in some stage, very, very relevant questions. Okay. So with 2 minutes left, any final thoughts? So any final message or thoughts?
Well, I think what you've just mentioned, what you've just mentioned there, Nat, is really, it sort of goes to like modern medicine. Like, modern medicine is great, right? And we're curing diseases in ways that we've never been able to do before. But, I think just believing that modern medicine is the cure to a lot of our ailments and long-term disease, and like that's what I'm talking about with mental health. It's like, now it's scientifically proven that if you have a better diet, if you exercise, and if you, and basically, if you live a more healthy life, you can really, it's not always about modern medicine. There's traditional medicines, and there's traditional ways of knowing and thinking and believing. And I think it's really important that we don't think that, this is the panacea, or this is going to solve all the problems of the world. And really, also understand that ancient knowledge is really important as well. I mean, I know it's a bit weird to say that, but I think if we wanted to, solve some of humanity's problems, we need to put more investment also in understanding the role that, that historic, cultures, indigenous cultures know, and everything else. I think the change in mental health is, you can really see the change. And that's what I really, when you talk about mental health, what do I do from a mental health? I research everything and all the new things that are happening that are more on the natural side of things. And I really, I think it's just really that kind of aligns with what you were saying before, is that we have to do it all in unison, and we can't, this can't be we can't have AI overriding some of the things that we also need to look at.
And a lot of the wisdom took thousands of years to be refined, right? I mean, if something survive the test of time, there is something in there, right, that needs to be listened to and respected and taken into consideration and not distorted. Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much. So thanks for your time. I think we'll wrap up. So it's been a pleasure. Short and sweet. I wanted to touch, I have actually one slide talk about the strategic intent and the work that you helped us to do in the strategic space for the Mindful AI Manifesto, the survey, but maybe that could be a topic for perhaps a future conversation. Right. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for including me, and it's very inclusive to feel, because the people that are actually the ambassadors as scholars and leading people within the world, and it's really humbling to actually be part of this. And so it's really exciting to to have this kind of forum to really think about how we can make AI very mindful.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. And for those watching the recording or watching live, please feel free to jump on our LinkedIn page, the Mindful AI Manifesto LinkedIn page. Follow us if you're not following us yet. Comment, like, share. We'll share a few links relevant to the conversation today. And stay tuned for our next LinkedIn Live. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat.
Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.